Welcome to the Profitable NDIS Provider Podcast, where we're joined by your hosts, Tania Gomez and Paul Bryan. In each episode, we'll be sharing valuable insights and tips to help you turn your NDIS business into a profitable venture. So whether you're just starting out or looking to take your business to the next level, you've come to the right place. Let's stop surviving and start thriving.
G'day everybody and welcome to the Profitable NDIS Provider Podcast. My name is Paul and I'm here with my amazing co-host Tania. Tania, how are you going today?
I'm wonderful, Paul. How are you today?
Very good, very good. I'm excited for today's call. We're chatting with a legend. Can you introduce us, please?
Yes, so we are joined by the wonderful Chris Lapa. Chris is the founder of the Growth Academy with a long history in all aspects of marketing, including radio, TV, social media, and now he's been specializing in assisting NDIS providers getting better outcomes with their marketing spends. Thanks for joining us today, Chris. It's so lovely to have you.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm long-time listener, first-time guest, so I'm super pumped to be here and shoot the breeze, all things marketing.
Yeah. So for those of our listeners who haven't had the pleasure to meet you in person or speaking at one of the TGC events, can you give us a little bit of an introduction into your story, how you ended up here, and that all important why?
Thank you. I'll try and keep it brief. So in a nutshell, around 15 years in marketing. And so from a professional standpoint, I'm always looking for businesses to help. I've worked in agencies for a long time, and that ends up being a pseudo consulting role, helping clients uncover opportunities, be better operators, improve their marketing, and ultimately reduce the investment required and get more customers. I guess from a personal standpoint, I've got the lived experience, the obligatory lived experience for the industry with family members and people going through disabilities throughout their lives and my own personal experience with some physical disabilities. So I've always wanted to pair my love for business and marketing with an industry that sort of matters. I see a lot of industries selling a lot of goods that people don't need. But I'm a big believer in helping providers reach as many participants as possible. And yes, it's very cliche, but I've worked on a lot of accounts that I don't fall in love with. I just see the transaction. But anytime NDIS clients come along and what I want to do more of is help them just reach more people and be excited about it. Be excited about how to stand out in the industry and how to be one of the best in class providers from a marketing and messaging and just a unique standpoint.
I love that. I mean, that resonates so much with me. I love the way that you come at it and wanting to be able to do something that matters in an industry that actually helps people. I had the awesome opportunity to catch up with you at one of Tania's SEAL summits in Melbourne and in Brisbane, and hearing you go through the process of how you help providers and taking them through that client journey was really, really cool. I know that you do like to focus on the story and how a provider, why they do what they do and how they get around that. What's the best marketing, best way of putting together a marketing strategy? How do we get those building blocks? Because I see a lot of people just diving into Facebook ads or into SEO and a lot of the time it's because they've seen something sexy on an ad, right? How do people put together a really comprehensive plan that's going to work for them?
So there's two parts to this. One, which I know Tania is a big fan of, and I'm a huge fan of, and it resonates in every industry, but probably more important in this space is the customer journey. And you can call it the path to purchase, but the customer journey is the whole process of if someone's never heard of you to ready to make a decision to use your services, what journey are they going on? And doubling down on that, there's so many influential people in the NDIS for attracting clients. And so another topic we talk about is the users and the choosers. And so having clarity around each one of those users, so it might be a participant directly, or the choosers, those influential stakeholders in that participant's life, their parents, their carers, their support coordinators, and everything in between. So it's really important to understand their path and how they may discover a provider. And then what also you want to overlay that with is the messaging piece. And so I also talk about having like a mini communication plan for each one of those users and choosers. And so if you're going to market your business to a support coordinator, the message needs to be tailored and unique. It can't just be the same message as you would be talking to a parent or a participant, because their pains are different, their frustrations are different, their wants, their needs, all of those things matter, you know. And so it's important to understand, where do they go from never hearing about you to, how do they go from never hearing about you to deciding to use you as a provider? And then what are you going to say to them specifically that resonates with them? You know, what is your story? What makes you unique? And one of the I'll throw a lot of cliches in this conversation today, but this one is show, don't tell. So don't tell me trust is a value of your business. Show me how you exercise that, or show me all of the things that make you the best provider, how you're innovative in your service delivery for your clients. Show me a video, tell me a story, share a case study or testimonial. So understand the journey, understand how to resonate with those people with messaging and storytelling.
That's a really cool place to be, because when you're actually focused on the story that's relevant to the participant, to the end user, right? You're more focused on their outcomes rather than telling everyone just how good you are and all the line items that you can charge them for. And I think a lot of providers get hooked up on how good they are rather than being able to tell the story of how they've actually helped people just like you, right? How they've actually gone through that process. Do you find that when you're working with providers, that is a bit of a shifting point for them?
Sorry, I had internet just dropped for a second there. Could you say that again? Sorry, Paul.
Do you find that it's a bit of a shifting point where people go realizing that I need to be able to show what I can do rather than just list all the things I can do?
Yeah, it's actually harder, but it is a shifting point. And if we get to the pointy end of marketing, the results aspect, time and time again, I've seen people with a clear message, a clear story, a clear strategy around that succeed over someone that just comes in with a Canva logo and ChatGPT messaging. You know, it's so common these days that businesses just pop up with a logo they've slapped together for 2 cents on Canva and no clear message or no understanding of their audience, and their website is all about them as a business.
Yeah, I think your point around, you know, the startup marketing and really focusing on who the message is going to is probably one of the most important things. You know, it's that really getting that building blocks right, and you can go and spend, you know, $100 or, you know, $100,000 on a website. There's a huge range in websites that are available, but it's really about what is actually going to give you the best return. And if you can't invest in a good website, maybe you shouldn't be building a whole website. Maybe you should be focusing on one really great landing page. Maybe you should be spending your marketing dollar in different ways, as opposed to going, right, we're going to spend all of this money on this great website but have no money to drive traffic to it, or the other way around, spend all this money driving traffic to a crap website. both of those don't work, right? You kind of need to figure out what exactly is within your marketing budget. What's the kind of ROI you're going to spend on this? What is the return that you're expecting? And over what period of time do you need to actually see a return? Because a campaign is very different if you need leads in the door today versus you've got enough clients right now, but you know you want to do a next round of growth coming up in the next couple of months.
Yeah, agreed.
On that subject, when we're talking about websites, why should providers focus on even having a website? Why isn't something like a Facebook page enough? And where do they really start with deciding on what their needs are?
Look, I think a website's like having a set of wheels on your car. You know, it is a necessity, and a website is ultimately a 24/7 salesman, right? And so it's there to communicate your message, connect with people finding you in all times of day and night. And so you can't be there to answer the phone all day, all night. Websites are much more curated spot and structured space for people to find information versus a Facebook page. You know, they're going to have to scroll for hours and hours to find all of the information about you. And so a Facebook page is a really good thing, or an Instagram account or anything like that is good as a real-time content piece, and we'll talk about that. But having a website that, again, has spent some time thinking about the message, the audience, showcasing your services, highlighting your best case studies, your testimonials, all of those things really matter, and it's a curated location. And the reality is most of your competitors are going to have a website, and it's going to help with Google Ads and a whole bunch of other things. So it's a necessity. It's not a luxury at this point. I'd advocate for websites over social media first.
I love how you've gone about the idea of helping people understand the value of the website actually being a useful piece inside your plan. I found that a lot of providers, some providers will invest in a massive website before they even have a first client. And I see some providers who are going through massive amount of growth and still have basically a landing page with, a contact form on it. When is the right type of website, and when should people be looking at going, right, now I need this, and now at this point I need to dive into something bigger or meatier? What does that look like?
I think it depends on your business growth and where you're at, and then also your methods of growth. I'm a big believer in what works for Paul doesn't work for me, sort of thing. So there's a unique approach to your growth journey. And for example, some people might be really good at network building and networking in general, right? They might be the person that everyone connects with in the room. And if that's their style and that's how they're going to grow, often that can be enough. Some people aren't naturally inclined like that. And that's one of the things I talk about with my clients is do what feels natural to you. Don't force things. And then, understand how you're going to grow. And so if we know that there's a lot of people searching for a service online, a really strong, powerful website could be important. But if you're advocating or sharing something that's unique and not a lot of people are looking for, maybe a single page that you can direct people to could be enough. So firstly is understanding a simple question. How and where am I going to get my clients from? And I know you talk about this a lot, Paul. Don't go to this big fancy marketing expense and plan if you haven't got your first few clients, your first few runs on the board. And so I'd advocate some businesses could start with a small 1-page or 2-page website and then grow into that as they need to scale and as they need their online presence to grow and as they're looking for other sources of leads. Then they can start to expand their opportunities beyond a single page, look at SEO sophisticated strategies with multiple pages and layers. So yeah, it different strokes for different folks, and it just depends on where you're going to get your best growth opportunities. Focus your energy there And it may not be a website to start with. It may just be in-person conversations.
Yeah, cool. Look, you mentioned social media there, and as ranking old timer with the most grey hair on this podcast right now, I remember starting a business before social media was actually a thing. And so, I've seen a lot of businesses start now who have just dived into it, and it's their whole world. It's all they do. But I think there's a lot of people missing the idea of like where they're actually connecting with people. I've seen social media underused. I've seen it completely overused. What are your tips for optimizing social media and spending money on social media as well? Because it can be a bit of a black hole for people.
First thing I'd say is having a compelling story and narrative really matters. Again, if I refer back to our previous touching on, basic assets, Canva assets, or things with stock images as an example. So if you want to optimize your spend on social media, and I can talk about some examples, one was with a good friend of ours, Tommy, and his company, WeFlex. I was very lucky. I landed on a bit of a unicorn when I came in to help Tommy, because he'd put so much time and energy into crafting really great content. He was anti-stock image everything. You can search any of the stock image platforms for disability, fitness, or whatever, and you get all the same stuff. And I guarantee if we lined up a room full of 50 providers, we could start to see some common stock images popping up on websites, right? And so the same goes with your marketing, with your social media. And so before you start spending on social media, think about your content plan and think about what's unique and what's going to connect with the audience and how you're going to embrace the story behind what you do. And so if you've got your own photos, your own videos, and your own way to connect to people, that will actually optimize your spend. Second is understanding the platforms. And so don't go to LinkedIn if you don't need to be on LinkedIn, because it's more expensive. If your audience is direct to consumer, go to Facebook or Instagram, maybe trial TikTok. So there's a range of things, but it's about that customer journey. It's about who we're talking to and what platform they're on. And that will also help you optimize your spend if you're picking the right platform. And then lastly is understanding the data, and this is where the marketing nerds get involved. We look at CPM and CPC, which is cost per 1,000 impressions, i.e. how many thousand people we can get for as little spend as possible.
Yeah.
And they're indicators to say our advertising is doing well if it's a low cost, or if it's a high cost, $100, $200, $500 per 1,000 people. There's some data points to indicate that things aren't working. And that's when you can start to test different messages, different videos versus static images. And so getting obsessed with the data can really help optimize your spend. So get killer creative and assets ready to go that are unique. Choose the right platform and obsess over the numbers. They would be my 3 tips when it comes to optimizing your social media spend.
Yeah, I think that's a really good summary of how to optimize all of that. I guess, where do Google Ads fit into all of this? Where does it sit as far as, Google Ads versus social media? Should you be doing both? Is it 50-50 of your budget against both? How does that kind of fit into the equation?
So Google Ads is really powerful for bottom of the funnel activity. So go with me on this. It's a bit of jargon. The idea of bottom of the funnel activity is someone's at the pointy end of that customer journey. They know what they're looking for. They're in the decisive phases of shortlisting a few providers. So they might look up, autism specialist, occupational therapist, Central Coast, like a very targeted search. They might be looking for something very specific. And so you can go into Google and understand how many people are searching for your particular service. And the more niche, the better, because then you have a chance to talk to that specific thing. But Google has a really good tool called the Keyword Planner where you can go and find that data and you can actually crunch some numbers. It'll tell you how much it'll cost per click, how many hundreds of searches there are, all those kinds of things. And you can start to put a formula together to say, okay, if it's $10 per click and I've got $1,000 budget and there's 1,000 searches a month and whatever else, you can crunch the numbers. And you might find that there's an opportunity to just start there. Because if people are searching for something specific and your website is really up to date with a really good message and it's clear to answer those searches and those needs, Google could be a really good starting point. But it relies on a really good website.
Yeah.
And so that's to our point earlier. Does your website make you stand out amongst the competition? Because chances are people will Google you and they'll look at 2 other competitors at least. You know, we all do it. We look for a local plumber and we might look 3 or 4 plumbers and look at their reviews, what they have to say. And it's the same with providers. It's the same in any industry. So make sure you do your research. Google could be a good opportunity. There could be searches, but your website has to be stacking up amongst the top tier providers in that space.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I wanted to ask about your, this podcast is all about being a profitable provider, and, profit margins in a provider business can be quite tight. Do you have a hack or a tip or something you would suggest if somebody is reviewing their marketing, looking to either reduce their marketing spend or optimize their marketing spend, what the lowest hanging fruit or the simplest place to start to really optimize your marketing spend would be?
That's a good question.
Waiting for the juicy stuff, yeah?
Yeah. One day I'm going to have the golden answer for this, the one-liner that's just going to be the breakthrough for every provider. But until then, firstly, it's about understanding your numbers. And I'm going to kind of take a side step to get to the answer. But I think understanding what a client is really worth to you and what you can afford to pay for that client is actually a really good hack. And a lot of businesses don't understand that information. They don't understand what a client, they haven't got a number of lifetime value, and they haven't got a number of what it costs them to acquire that customer. And so firstly, a hack is understand those numbers. And if you're using an agency right now or another provider helping you with that, or your internal marketing team, I think it's really important to ask those questions. And if they've got the answers, great. If they don't, then you all need to work on that. And so you may be spending money in areas that you're not hitting those targets. I would say Google Ads is a really good place to start because you can do a calculated method. Social media is a little more abstract and you have to invest in good content. And so it's not the cheapest platform. And for you to win as a provider on social media, I would encourage you to have really good content, which either takes a lot of time or a lot of investment with a specialist or a good content team, a videographer, photographer, or an in-house social media person or an external agency to help you. So social media can be really powerful, but I advocate for having really good content, which is a bit of a longer term thing. So Google Ads, if you can start there, I would say start there. And the other thing, go to networking events. They're free. If anyone comes to me and they're starting out, I don't actually advocate for social media ads as a starting point. Even Google Ads, if they don't have a website, I would advocate for getting a clear story and going to meet people and test that story. So I would actually spend your time as your money and go to those events, connect with people and see if your story resonates. That would be my biggest hack in this space. Don't come to people like me until you're ready, that you've road tested your story and your theory. Go and spread the word at all and as many events as you can get to.
I love that. I think that there's a lot of wisdom there for people to be able to go. I could go to a couple of networking meetings split test or trial several different ways of communicating my story within the space of an hour and see what resonates really fast, and then lean into those things. I think that people often miss the importance of actual human-to-human interaction and the speed with which you can gauge a response. You can see how people connect, and then the ability to then find what does work and lean hard into that. Yeah. And when we create that story that is the why that you're there, that story of how you're helping people and getting results, it creates a very, very powerful tool for you to use that can then be used in the content of your website. It can be the driver for the content for your social media. It's the reason that people hit your website from those Google ads. And I love the way you've really rounded off all of that. There's no silver bullet, as you said, but it's understanding that hitting those couple of targets, getting that journey right, understanding that journey, understanding the cost of acquisition as well. It's really important. So you're not spending $50,000 to have a client who's going to come to you, and you're getting now a client who's you're working with for 2 hours a week.
Exactly. Right? And that's a really valid point, is some businesses can afford to pay a lot more to acquire a customer. So if you're running a SEAL operation, or you've got someone with high intensity supports, 24/7 supports, as a revenue perspective, that client's worth a lot more to you as a business. So therefore you're willing to pay a lot more. You can afford to test, a few $1,000s in Facebook ads to get a couple of clients, because it's not a big deal, or Instagram ads or whatever. But if you're selling, 4 hours of support a week, or starting out just trying to find your feet, it can be a very costly exercise. And, I know we were talking earlier, Paul, offline, around a client having an SEO line item on their billing and stuff. And so, that's what scares me about the space, is not enough providers being clear and understanding where they should start. And it needs to come from their growth goals, what a client's worth, and how much capital they have to test and learn. And if they haven't put work into their messaging and storytelling, it's actually going to be a lot more expensive just to learn. And that's my biggest fear, is they spend a lot of money and a lot of time just learning without having some expert tips or guidance to point them in the right direction early on. To go to the cliches, filling the leaky bucket is the first thing that comes to mind, right? And we've all heard it, and it's a cliche for a reason, and it's true. There's so many times where I'll start with clients, and one of the things I advocate for is not being a marketer that just sends a bunch of leads and that's my job done, right? I'm a big believer in sales and marketing having a seat at the table together, and they need to work hand in hand to optimize the value of that lead, the cost of that lead, and all of those things in between. And I really believe that, firstly, the industry has to change its mindset that sales is ugly or sales is gross. Not a lot of people have sales training or backgrounds, and I understand that. And it can be gross. My first job out of university was cold calling 100 plus C-suite executives a day, and that was soul destroying. But it's resilience building, and you learn a lot about the human psychology and how to overcome objections and how to nurture people through. And so, I want to advocate for as many providers to get some level of sales training, even if it's just some YouTube stuff, but really understand what a sales process is. But more importantly, some simple things around urgency about responding to leads. We joked about it the other day, 10-year-olds being lenient, saying 12 hours, and you scoffed at that, worried. I try to give everyone a benefit of the doubt, but it should be no more than a few hours max. But again, not every business is set up that way, and life happens, and business happens, and NDIS of all industries, crisis happens. And so you don't always get a chance to get to them quick enough, but having a clear process, I will call them on the first day. Maybe I'll call them twice on the first day. I'll email the second day. I'll SMS the next day. Whatever that process is, have something defined, have a script in place, have a bunch of questions you need to ask, and really help yourself optimize the opportunity with every one of those leads. Because you're right, like beyond selling yourself, like if you're in a room and you can sell to someone, that's easy. But then when you bring a team in and you're asking them to sell and they don't have a process, where do they start? How do they know what to do? And so, you know, you could do all the best things in marketing, but if you've got a crummy sales process, it ultimately leads to the leaky bucket, and you're wasting money, you're wasting time, and you're wasting opportunity to grow. Innovation is probably another one. And I'm AI obsessed at the moment. And I reckon we could do a whole nother discussion on this, and everyone's still learning, you know, and I encourage every provider, every team to start to embrace an AI culture. And that can be different for every industry. Obviously within the NDIS, you know, you want a level of care and privacy and all of those things within your clients and that world, so you don't want to go too crazy. But also looking, we talked earlier, Tania, about the low profit margins, right? And so when you're building a marketing team, if you're going to do that, or if you're building a marketing system, try and do things that, anything that's repeatable, you should be able to do through AI. And so you can build some systems and processes to make things faster. And so you may not need a whole social media team if you can rely on a clever ChatGPT prompt and, you know, a custom GPT for your business. And so I won't go too nerdy, but I think my one encouragement for providers in this space is to learn about new innovation in marketing and in sales, try and streamline the process, try and make things more efficient and faster so you can bring back speed and efficiency, lower your costs, but still you need to employ that human element. And so you're the human in it for sure, but AI is a big opportunity, and there's other ways, there's automations and things. So innovation in your marketing and your sales and your processes is a huge growth hack in my eyes.
Yeah, brilliant. Look, AI has made some friends, it's made some enemies, but you're 100% right. It's going to be a part of what we're doing as businesses owners in general, and it's a great tool in the hands of someone wielding it correctly. And so, 100%, like helping it to remove repetitive tasks, saving time, freeing up your team to be able to do the things that they're really good at is really, really powerful. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining us today and dropping some truth bombs, I think, for some providers who are looking at what's going on and where they're spending at the moment. Guys, if you're listening right now, we'd love you to share this episode, because I think there is a lot of truth about what Chris has spoken today. I know I've had conversations with providers who are just really struggling with this whole idea of marketing themselves, where to start, what to do. And you're 100% on the point, mate, is just looking at that client journey, understanding what's relevant to where you're at right now. There's not a one size fits all, and then leaning into what works really well. So thank you so much, mate. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Guys, next week is our last episode of the year, and Tania and I are going to be diving into the highlights and the great things we've learned this year, all that we've learned through 2024, the changes, the fun, the good episodes. So, guys, that'll be our wrap up. We love you. Have a great time, and we'll see you on next episode.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Profitable NDIS Provider Podcast with Tania Gomez and Paul Bryan. We hope you found today's episode informative and valuable. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to subscribe, leave us a rating, and share it with others who could benefit from our insights. Until next time, keep thriving.